I'm going to take the political compass test just as a start off. See where it puts me. I have an idea of where I'd land, but just see what happens. So this is the famous one Ben Shapiro recently took. Let's see how I fare on it. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I could not agree more. Uh, all things should be in the pursuit of bettering humanity and the people and the workers. Corporations, if they exist in such a system, will benefit from that. I mean, a stronger, healthier, smarter, better workforce is a stronger, smarter, healthier, better economy, so the businesses are better. I'd always support my country, whether it is right or wrong. Strongly disagree. I'm not a statist. My country makes mistakes. It needs to be called out on those. Calling out mistakes is how you fix things. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I strongly agree with this as well. Um, I've known multiple people, believe it or not, who are aspiring hip hop artists, and I never understood why they would always be like, "Oh yeah, I'm from the 313. You were accidentally born in this area. So why are you proud of this area? What are you proud of this area for?" And they never really have an answer. So nationalism is pretty much a bad meme. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Again, race, by everything I've seen and read, is skin deep. People are much more impacted by where and how they grow up than by what race their parents happen to be. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, I do tend to think along consequentialist lines. So this is an interesting question for me. I tend towards yes, but it's a complex situation. So I'm going to click a tepid agree here, because I imagine that there are situations where this would be true, and I'm open to this being true. But in a globalized society, generally speaking, the enemy of my enemy is already either my enemy or friend. So obviously, this is proposing a situation where that is not true. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Again, as a consequentialist, I have to agree that sometimes extrajudicial action can be justified. But I think I'm actually going to go disagree here, because that's too easily, not to go all slippery slope, but that too easily creates just completely unforgivable atrocities. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I wonder if they knew how ironic this question was going to be, given how many Twitch streams and videos are about taking this test. I disagree. I think Bill Nye, the Mythbusters, and The Daily Show and Colbert Report all show that mixing true news and information in with entertainment, and the explosion of, I guess what we could call infotainment streams on Twitch and YouTube, shows that entertaining is just as important as informing. So now we're onto the economy. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Uh, yes, strongly agree. That is a basic of Marxist interpretation. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. This is a tough one. I don't have any particular training in economics, so I can't really speak with authority on inflation versus unemployment. But my feeling from what I do know, my understanding would be that if inflation is high, it's going to be bad whether people are working or not. So I'm going to go with, again, a tepid agree. I admit I know next to nothing about that. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Absolutely. There is nothing in a business's charter or mandate or anything that states that they have to be responsible. The only way we can put pressure on them is either through governmental regulation or market pressure. And when one company owns pretty much everything, there's not really any way to put market pressure on them. So government regulation is the way to go there. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamentally good right. You're goddamn right, Daddy Marx. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Strongly agree. I have issues with having to pay for water to be piped to my house, and I fully understand all of the problems and issues, or problems and conveniences that come with that. All right, land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Again, strongly agree. You wave your magic wand and perform a magic trick, and you own this land, so you get to continue to profit from it forevermore. Yeah, no, I disagree. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Strongly agree. Personal fortunes should require labor on your part. It's as simple as that. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. There are definitely some good arguments for protectionism, protectionism, of course, being where you bias trade in your country against others. We're gonna go with again. I'm gonna go with a tepid agree here because I can imagine situations where this would be true, but generally, protectionism is not a great idea. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I disagree. I think that companies should be responsible for delivering uh, more than profits to their shareholders. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. Strongly. The rich are not taxed enough. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Strongly disagree. Medical care is a human right. Everyone should have access to it. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. So I know many people, when they read governments, they automatically read states. But of course, a core tenet of anarchist thought is that there doesn't have to be a state for there to be a government. I agree that there should be a punishment for businesses or organizations that mislead the public, particularly if it's to their gain, but just in general. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Strongly agree. I'm not really a free market guy. I don't think free markets are a good idea. In general, to create the ideal situation where a free market could work, there definitely needs to be strong regulations, which of course makes it no longer a free market. The freer the market, the freer the people. Disagree. The market needs regulation to stay functional for the majority of people. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Sorry, abortion is about a woman's bodily integrity, so they should not be forced to carry a baby to term if they don't want to. I know that's kind of harsh, but that is all authority should be questioned. Absolutely, strongly agree. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Strongly disagree. The problem with this kind of rhetoric and this kind of behavior being acceptable in a society is that it never ends. That's as simple as that. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. And this is interesting. When I read theaters, my mind immediately jumped to uh, movie theaters, like the multiplex cinema type thing. But obviously, they're referring to stage theaters and, of course, museums. I strongly agree. I don't like the idea that museums and theaters have to go for profit in order to stay afloat. That just seems gross to me. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. So this is interesting because this is schools stating that classroom attendance is compulsory without discussing the possibility of without the attenuating societal changes that would have to make that feasible. But in general, I agree here, or disagree with this. Agree, classroom attendance should be compulsory. But I feel like we need to make some societal changes to make that a little bit more. Because otherwise, all you're doing is punishing those who can't show up, either through home life issues or financial issues. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. Even though this is very generic language and their own kind can be interpreted in multitudes of ways, uh, they're all pretty much bad. I don't agree with this at all. People should be free to mix with whomever they like. And I think that the way capitalist atomization causes us to splinter into different groups, which we identify with as a matter of, as Peter Coffin talks about, as a matter of consumption as identity, creates real problems. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I'm going to agree here because everyone is a little bit different parenting, and I know that there's a lot of discussion about whether corporal punishment in children is good or bad, but from what I have understood from my sister who has a young child, and he's not my brother, but I've known him so long and we're such close friends that he might as well be, watching him raise his child, that particularly when they're young, sometimes a quick open hand slap to the thigh or buttock to get their attention is not harmful. Obviously, this can be taken to extremes and harm has been done. But in this case, I think that sometimes, a little corporal punishment can help. I'm open to having my mind changed on that. This is just my experiential opinion. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Oh boy, I kept a lot of secrets from my parents, and I know my sister did too. Part of me wants to say agree, but I know there are a lot of problems kids can get into that, while they might be embarrassing, could be resolved simply by getting an adult involved. So I'm going to agree that it's natural. I'm not going to say that that is a good thing necessarily. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. Legalize it. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. See, this is an interesting thing that capitalist alienation does. It treats jobs as an end goal rather than as something to do to help society. So I'm going to disagree here because I think schooling should be to educate you about the things you need to live a full life and to find what you do that makes life worth living for you. And in between doing those things that make life worth living for you, there are certain things you have to do as part of society. But obviously, I'm discussing this in the context of a some sort of socialist world where work is done just for society and not to make profits for capitalists who do no work. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. I'm going to disagree here because that argumentation leads to actual eugenics. As a consequentialist, once you start defining inheritable disabilities and putting people with those disabilities on a list, it can get bad. So it's better, in my opinion, to just not look at that. As science improves, we will find cures for those disabilities or engineer solutions around them. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. I agree here. I will even bump that up to a strongly agree. Now, I'm taking discipline in this context to mean to accept discipline in their lives. By that I mean have a schedule and stick to it. If you make a promise or a commitment, you keep it. That kind of discipline, not the kind of discipline that many people often refer to, where we're talking about do what I say or you'll be punished. Authoritarian, but discipline is a good thing in a life. There are no savage and civilized peoples, there are only different cultures. Strongly agree. Civilized is a matter of perspective, and it's almost entirely savage and civilized dichotomies are almost always used by colonizers to justify their own oppression of the colonized. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. This is where we get into the free riders system, and in our current system, I disagree with this. I don't think this would be a big of a problem under some hypothetical socialist society as people think, in a system where things like basic food, housing, clothes, those basic necessities of life are decommodified so that you're not working for someone else's profit. Your work goes, you see a tangible result of your work. We'll have fewer people who just want to lay around. And also, a lot of the reason why a lot of people are just want to lay around when they're off work is because working 40 hours for someone who doesn't like you, doing something where you feel like you're not doing anything, is exhausting. I've worked customer service, I've worked sales, I've worked in a factory. And in each of those, I never felt, with one or two exceptions in the customer service and sales instances, there were one or two instances where I felt like I actually helped someone. But the vast majority of my time working in the wage occasion, I came home and I felt like I did not do anything to make the world a better place. And I understand that that's not what everyone wants to do, and it maybe shouldn't be a goal for everyone every day. But I do believe that there should be an opportunity that you shouldn't feel like you made the world a worse place, and that your job, you should have some sort of tangible, visible benefit to you and the society around you, which honestly I've never seen outside of one or two instances at my old jobs. So, to answer this question, I'm going to disagree. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. I think that every person who is alive deserves food, shelter, clothing, and education. If you're okay with, because understand that even in socialist societies, there's not going to be books and TVs for you to just take if you're not working. We'll give you a hut and a meal, and that's it. If you want more, you have to work. Nobody is trying to make it so that everyone gets to sit at home not doing anything. We just want everyone to work their fair share. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I agree. Depending on what you're troubled about, taking your mind off it can help make things better. Now, granted, there are issues with that. Like, if it's an immediate problem, you should probably focus on it. My best friend's fiance has her grandmother was recently diagnosed with cancer. Yes, recently diagnosed with cancer in the middle of a pandemic. When it rains, it pours. And both he and I were trying to tell her she needs to focus on other things to take her mind off of it, and she just refused to listen and just wanted to wallow. So, again, this is context dependent, but generally I agree. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I'm going to disagree because there can definitely be situations where they can, but this question kind of also presumes that full integration is something that is desired, and I'm not sure I agree with that. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. Strongly disagree. What's good for the most successful corporations is a steady supply of uncomplaining, dumb drones doing their job for as little pay as possible. That's not good for all of us. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Now, this is interesting because it's obviously talking about the possibility of state media and things like that. I'm going to disagree because one of the problems with a lot of government and state uh, uh, controlled things is that people don't trust the government, and they take the government as this monolith that is inherently untrustworthy. But the issue is that the career politicians are often demonstrably untrustworthy. So if the people we're electing are untrustworthy, the government is going to become untrustworthy. So if we elect trustworthy people, changes the government. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Strongly agree. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. So this is an advantage of a one-party state. There are lots of other issues with a one-party state, but I'm going to give an agreement here because that is true, but there are a lot of other issues with a single-party state. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Disagree. Actually, strongly disagree. There are things people do that they don't realize are against the law all the time, and in a surveillance state, they suddenly get punished for that. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Sorry, I'm not for the death penalty. I don't believe there is any crime that is heinous enough in a fair justice system to warrant death, because when you're killing someone, you are saying this person is irredeemable. And I have a hard time believing that any person, even someone as gone as like a Jeffrey Dahmer or a Charlie Manson, is irredeemable. So, yeah, strongly disagree. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. Strongly disagree. Hierarchies are bad because they teach people that if you are above someone, you deserve to be above that person. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. Abstract art is great because it is something that can mean something different for every person, which I think is the core of what makes art great. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree. This is what creates so-called super criminals, is people who break a minor law, go to jail, and come out knowing the finer points of being a criminal. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Strongly disagree. I already said I do not believe that anyone is truly irredeemable. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. After all, in this quarantine situation, who are we turning to? We're turning to the artists. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Strongly disagree. The whole idea of women are mothers by nature is disproved by several women I know. So, you know, it's not something that is endemic to women. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the planet, genetic genetic resources of developing countries. I agree. Multinational companies are definitely exploiting developing countries. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Boy, making peace is doing a lot of work here, I think. Because I think at some point you have to mature to the point where you understand that you understand how the establishment works and what can get through normal channels and what you'll have to go around about. But making peace with the establishment can also be siding with the establishment. Disagree here. Yeah, that making peace, a lot of the language here is a little vague. Astrology accurately explains many things. Strongly disagree. I have a feeling I'm going to be disagreeing with a lot of these. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of help. Disagree. Social Security is something that comes out on a cycle and is taken from everyone. Charity is whatever people can give. Some people are naturally unlucky. I know that luck and hard work are correlative, so I would tend to agree here, or tend to disagree. It is important that my child's school still strongly disagree. If you find comfort in religion, which I have several family members who do, that's great. But I always say that religion is like cocks. It's fine to have one. It's fine to be proud of it. Please do not shove it down me or my children's throats. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly disagree. Marriage is literally a construct for the legitimization of wealth and progeny, which is so unimportant these days. It's really only there because it's still coded into our tax system. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Agree. As long as everyone consents and no one is permanently harmed, unless that's what they're into. Whatever goes, goes. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. That's just completely factually unsound. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Disagree. I think that, especially in America, we're way too prudish and closed off about sex. So, where did I end up? In the introduction of the traditional. Okay, this is what I already talked about. Left, right line. Stalin is over here in the authoritarian left. Hitler, Thatcher. That's about where I thought. So left negative 725. Libertarian negative. Yeah, that's. So I ended up way down here in the libertarian left category, which is pretty much where I thought I'd be. You compare that to the American presidential. I'm more left and more libertarian than even Hawkins. Way more left than Sanders or Gravel. That's where I stood. That was fun. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked it, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thank you. See you next time.